From walking into a workshop, to lifting up that pencil, to having the courage to make the first mark, to draw that first image, to share that story, to work with people to animate that story into the performance of your life. And then see that performance played back to you so that you really feel it, you really experience it, and learn from it once again.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot out in the moment around the migrant community and around what's kind of going on at an international level. There's a lot of headlines, there's a lot of trauma, there are very powerful images that we're seeing about refugees and war. And we wanted to make something different. We really wanted to focus on these kind of big journeys, little journeys. We wanted to create a different feel to it that wasn't about headlines, but was about the real human experience over a course of time.
We tried to find a way to see if we could make a film that would act as a platform for some of our storytellers to share their story in such a way that the wider world could connect with it at a human level. Image making was the key to unlocking people's ability to express their story. It was purely their authentic voice of their experience.
We kind of gave them a creative playground with lots of different tools and materials to be able to explore. We ran workshops with our storytellers, and this was to really give them a space to explore telling their stories in different ways. I think it's very important at this point to distinguish between the kind of art making, because what we're looking for is spontaneous image making, because that's where the raw energy, the raw feelings, the emotions, where a lot of the charge is in that. Because once people start to think, they start to censor. And we really wanted to get the uncensored material for the story. That's where the power is, that's where the strength is. And so they made very powerful images using different materials about a moving part of their story. And once they had made and connected in with some of the emotion, some of the parts of their story, we invited them to make a performance, a very short performance, and to bring to life, to animate one part of their story using the materials.
So with the storytellers' artwork, with their images, their symbols, their objects, the textures, we needed to find a way to represent this back to them so that they really saw it, so that they were a witness of their own experience. So working with a team of puppeteers who took the artwork and transformed it into a story, an animation, holding true to the story as much as possible, working so closely with the imagery, the symbology and the art of the storytellers, and breathing life into it through the animation so that we could represent back their story to them. Vetri was a man who went out in search of greatness, but what he discovered was his goodness. When he was making images initially, he discovers a piece of green felt. It helped him to remember his mother tying his suitcase with green thread. And that became a potent symbol to him.
So the green string that his parents so carefully wrapped his bag to make sure, his suitcase to make sure that everything that he needed to come here, food, clothing, all of that would stay safe, and the rest of it, when he arrives here, he cuts it off really quickly because he doesn't want to be seen. He's embarrassed about it and he kind of gets rid of it. And yet through his journey of discovery and having to fall down, have to rebuild himself, his relationship changes, the meaning changes, so that suddenly he realizes that the green string is love.
Oh yes, I will never ever forget that. I'm missing this now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And so for Sahara, she's 2 years old, and then her family leaves Somalia. They leave the two brothers behind with family to seek asylum in another country, with the idea that the brothers will come and join her later. But war breaks out before that can happen, and so they're separated and they lose contact.
So Sahara lost contact with her homeland. She lost contact with half her family members. And then the other part of her story is reconnection.
And it was fascinating when Sahara was making her image, she was talking about a land that she had been forced to leave it to. So it's a land that she doesn't remember. She can only remember it through the stories she's told from her mother, her parents, her family. And it's only when she goes back as an adult that she knows what they're talking about. But already she knows that this land has red earth. And then when she goes back to Somalia, the red earth is the one thing that really stands out to her. That becomes the symbol of home, this home that she had to leave, this home that she didn't remember, and this separation that happened to them as a family. And then going back and reconnecting with home, with what that meant to her.
And when she went up and met with the puppet, with herself as a puppet, she was compelled to touch the red earth. She had to touch it. And that's when our experience becomes an embodied experience, when we connect with the stories through our feelings, not just through our thinking, but with our feeling.
And it's amazing Wakas's story because he's 17, he's young, he's not even officially an adult, and he goes off to seek this fortune. He wants to support his aging father who's labouring in Libya, and he's very aware that his father is getting old and that he needs to go and bring something back, that now he has to become a man. And so he goes on this boat journey, and it's terrifying. The compass breaks, their food and water run out, and so they're forced into the unpredictable, the unknown. They don't know whether they're going to survive. They don't know whether they're going to find land or not. And I think what's so interesting about Wakas is that they were the youngest people on the boat, and the role that they played in looking after the older people on the boat. So connecting in with their faith, but also supporting and helping the other people. Because the other people were in despair, they were losing hope, so much so that some of the older people were thinking about jumping ship.
And in that darkness, in the abyss, in that moment of hopelessness, there's hope. There's a turning point in the journey, driven by his faith, driven by his sense of duty, driven by his humility and compassion for other people, to bring hope not just to himself, but to everybody else in the boat. Manuela's is a story of love. It's a story of a young woman who lived in her known world, but who felt somehow restricted within it, who felt there was more, had a sense that there was something more, but didn't know what that was. Until one day she brushed shoulders with a young man, a musician, who whispered in her ear. And then her journey began.
She meets this man and they have this whirlwind love affair, and yet so much of it happens when they're not present, they're not together, because they live in two different places, and how they fall in love through letters, that actually, even though they're not spending physical time together, that in the time apart, they have this experience of relationship.
And in Manuela's story, once again, there is the sacrifice, the ordeal of having to give something up in order to receive something else. In Manuela's case, it's letting go of her relationship with her mother in the form it was, to break contact with her mother, and in order to live a new life. And we see that across all the stories, the sacrifice that everyone had to make. And that relates so deeply, once again, to the human condition.
Hello. Good. Well, thank you, really.
Thank you so much for coming.